This is my mate Beau Beaumont playing in Máquina Bristrónica last September. This is his SoundCloud page. There's some amazing live performances on here, as well as some DJ sets, and I'll put a link to this in the description, so do check her out. She's rather brilliant. And she asked if I could help carry her kit from the car to the venue, and I thought it would be a couple of flight cases at least, but all she was using was a Korg Electribe. And it turns out she's not alone. Other people are still using these either for the whole set or as an integral part of the whole set. So I was wondering how on earth you could do that with something that was this old, because these came out in 2003. But there is a lot hacked into them. Now, two variations. They both have 14 pattern parts, including 9 drums, 5 synths or samples depending on the model, 128 step long patterns, that's 8 bars at 16 steps a bar, with 256 patterns per song, a generous amount of effects with an audio input and plenty of hands-on control, plus a couple of valves for some added warmth, grit or outright distortion. This one's the blue variation, the EMX-1, which is 5 synth parts plus 16 different oscillator types. So there's a huge variation in tones you can get from it. Beau was using the red sample-based ESX1 in the Máquina Bristrónica gig, but I have seen her recently play using both the blue and the red together. First half was sample-based and dubby, second half was much more lively and techno-y. And if you look at it, it really does have a bit of a early 2000s vibe about it, but it's quite a weighty bit of kit actually. It's quite hefty, much heftier than it looks. It's an all metal construction, and that screen really does scream 20 years old, doesn't it? But despite its age and looks, it's got a lot going for it. This is a little clip from my live set demo that you can watch in full at the end of this video. And there's a surprising amount of firepower in this, even though the number of drum sounds and the flexibility of the synth engine is extremely limited by today's standards. Here's just the kicks, for example. Really got a meaty techno vibe. And you can do some nice Chicago style house on this, as well as electro. And whoever had this before, we've been doing some really nice actually drum and bass style stuff. I think that's how I describe it. We're nearly there. That's it. I mean, 41 sounds like a lot of kicks, but when you consider I do little sample packs for my patrons and they've got 600 kicks in them, 41 isn't a lot, but it does cover a lot of bases. But like the essential tones you'd need for techno, or the essential tones you need for a bit of electro. And it's the same for the snares as well. Just run through those quickly. There you go then, just 38 snares. It does cover 909s, 808s, Lindrum, plus some live sounding drums and R&B style bits in there. But they do cover a lot of bases. Unlike the rims, I think we've only got 6 rims in here. So it is fairly limited from that perspective. We've got 9 drum parts, 6A and 6B, 7A and 7B choke each other. We've also got an accent on the synth parts and the drum parts. So this one, the blue one, is the synth version, but we don't have full synth engines in here. We've got different oscillator types we can select from. They're not completely different synth emulations, just the oscillator. I won't show all of them, but I'll go through a couple of them so you get the idea. Waveform is 2 oscillators. So you can detune oscillator 2, change the waveform of oscillator 1, change the waveform over here as well. We do have modulation up there as well. Oscillator 1 edit, so we'll go to oscillator 1 edit. A bit of PWM. These are mono voices, but we do have this chord mode down here, so I'll just show you a couple of others before we get there. Put some intervals in. Go to chord mode. Let's take that modulation off. Different chords. Let's go to the minor 7th, the favorite for a bit of Chicago house. Where's it gone? Oh, there it is. We can change the amp envelope. It's just a decay and release, or just release really. And you can change the voicing, so how it's played on a keyboard. And I think you can change the waveform up there as well. And we got a filter. With the drive. Resonance. We've got high pass. Band pass. As well as the low pass, obviously, and then we've got envelope. So put that on the low pass. Inverted. So although we don't have a full spectrum of controls, there's loads of ways of moulding a tone. You can use the pitch, the pan, the effects and the level, as well as the modulation on both the drums and the synth parts. But obviously the synth oscillator only works with the synth parts, as does the synth filter. But yet the synth models all work in the same way. It's just the oscillator edit parameters that change. So looking at the unison, detuning oscillator to pitch, ring mod. There's actually 3 editable parameters, because in the main menu you can change the waveforms. Oscillator edit 1 and edit 2 are the only ones that you can modulate. Oscillator sync, the waveform of oscillator 1, and then the sync amount. So using the LFO, let's try and do a standard sync tone. So oscillator edit 2, that's this one. I've put it on the single shot LFO, which gives us an extra envelope. Let's increase the release using the amp envelope. Hopefully you get the idea. Cross mod. VPM, let's come down to here. We've got some PCM sounds in here as well. Got a comb filter in there. So let's use this to go through. How many sounds in there in total? 76. This definitely feels around 2000 to me. And then we got the effects. We've got 3 effects and we can chain them in different ways. So FX1's going into FX2, or FX2's going into FX3, or they're all going through to FX3. And up here we select which effect we're using per tone. You can only select one up here per tone. So on this one, we can select FX1. So select one and now it's in. Let's just have it on FX1. So I'm editing FX1 there. That's on a sync delay. And these work just like the oscillator did. You've got different settings for each of them. So if I go to reverb, none of these effects are the best sounding effects, but they do give lots of variation for when you're performing. So things like, you know, just and you'll see me using stuff like that in a minute. We've also got in here things like chorus and flanges and phases. Ring mod again. Talking modulation. Distortion. decimator. So it actually does become quite flexible because you can send an effect to effects 1, have that decimated in effect 1, but have effect 1 going into effect 2, and effect 2, well, we've got it as a delay there, but let's turn effect 2 into reverb, edit effect 1, as you'll have seen while I'm trying to demo that, you've got to move from one to the other, and it does get quite confusing. You've got to concentrate at times. And that all made me think, how on earth do you do a complete set on one of these? And I saw Beau Beaumont play a couple of nights ago, which inspired me to have a go. So I've got hold of this one, and I have, over the past couple of days, been training myself or teaching myself or trying to work out how you do it. And actually, it's really quite interesting, and it can be done. And I'll play a little demo at the end. I've got a little sort of 15-minute, I don't know what you'd call it, a set performance that I do using the techniques I'm going to go through now. But when these first came out, I have to say I didn't quite get them. I didn't quite understand why anyone would want one of these when it's just nowhere near as flexible as a computer. And they're the sort of comments I still get today on hardware things. But I think Korg were well ahead of the game with this, to be honest, because 20 years ago, you know, DJing and playing records or playing tracks, the next logical progression, I suppose, is to perform the tracks or to create them live, and that's what this is doing, and that's what lots of people do these days. That's what the EMOD nights are all about. That's what we do in Liverpool all the time. We've got lots of gigs that we have with our friends, and you know, it's a huge growing industry. So I absolutely get it now. So in this, I don't want to go through absolutely everything. I think I've really shown you everything you need to know to understand what it is and what it does. What I wanted to do was show how you create a performance that goes from basically from track to track to track without loading different songs in this, and trying to get a smooth transition from one idea to the next. But before I start, a couple of things not mentioned. We do have an arpeggiator. We do have motion control, actually. So we have parameter locks, and they can transition smoothly or immediately to different trig positions. Over here, we've got sort of main menu, so the pattern menus. So there's your BPM, your swing, your roll types, part edits as well. So this is the part we're using there. If we go to the kick, there's the kick drum. Oh, there's a snare. I don't know what that is. That's going through the decimator, is it? There you go. Yeah, step edit, so you can edit the individual steps. Got song parameters, global parameters. We've got MIDI parameters, so clock, external, internal. And this one's got a memory card, so this one uses an SD card. The older versions have got smart cards, not SD cards, so do keep an eye. If you are thinking of buying one, look for the smart card versus SD card. The SD card's a little bit more expensive because it's a little bit handier to use them. So that's what we've got here. So the idea here is to try and get your whole performance, whether that be an hour, half an hour, 2 hours, within one song. So each song can have 256 patterns in it, which gives you lots of opportunities for variations. And each of those patterns can have completely different tones in them. Each of the drums can be different in all of them. The effects can be different in all of them. So you've got 256 variations. If you're doing something like, you can imagine like a DJ set, you've got 256 variations from where you start to where you end. Here's the patterns I've used for the demo I've got at the end there. So this is the first one. That's how it starts off. If I just start playing stuff. And I'll load the next pattern or the one before it. That's the one before it. And the trick here is to copy parts from one pattern to the next so they can sort of blend in to each other. So the end of one is like the start of the next. So this is how I've tried to figure out transitioning from pattern 1 to pattern 2. And what I've done to see if it works is I've dropped it down so I can have a transition from one to the other with just a few tones in it. So if we listen to A1, then I move to A2. Not identical, it's never going to be identical because it is a performance, but if you can drop it down and get it to near enough, in a club, will anyone really notice? In the demo I do at the end, I've only practiced it once, and the second transition is a bit awful, but hopefully you can sort of get the idea here. So let's bring some other bits in. So use shift if you don't want to hear it when it comes in. Otherwise, when I hit this from mute, you'll hear the kick or the snare. So hit shift, and whichever one of these is lit is the one that you're performing with over here. So hi-hats, let's perform the hi-hats, for example. Let's put an LFO on them. I've got a fair few things going through effects 3 here. Not quite sure what. But if I start playing around with effects 3, that's a reverb. I'm increasing the time and the amount. Go to 4. And bring the kick back in. Hi-hats. Not very loud, let's make it a bit louder, here we go. Tweak number 4 again. Bring this in. There's a fast bass line. Yeah. Change the amp envelope. Adjust effect 1, which is the ring mod, I think. Get 6B down a little bit, a bit loud, sorry, 6A. Edit 2 again. Play the ring mod. Make it a bit louder. Add more reverb. And then try and remember how that pattern ends to start the next one. It ends like this. So I'll go to the next one. Here's hoping. There we go, that was a bit smoother. The transition isn't perfect. I think the DSP can't cope with having 2 reverbs, for example, so you get a bit of a click or a bit of a jump. But in the live setting, doesn't matter. And then I've got all my different synth parts in here as well. Let's get rid of that ride. Play with a filter maybe. Add a couple of notes to the acidy part. Oops, take off keyboard. Maybe have some glide. Ravey stab. Got a lot going on there, but I'm just trying to show you how you bring it all together. And then I think I've got some claps in here as well. Are they on 3? Oh, that's the rim. Claps are on 4. Do the little trick with the reverb again. And now what I'm going to do is, as I build that up, I'm going to drop out the drums and I'm going to bring in like a conga line at the same time to give a nice transition. So I'm going to try all. So I'm going to take out these 4 and add 5. So wish me luck. Yeah. Take out some of them. Add the kick. Oops. Drop out this ride. And do the build again. Got some snares on this, I think. Playing with the effects, clever use of the drums. I've tried to keep kick, snare, rim, clap, percussive tones like congas and metal bells and stuff. Closed hi-hat, open hi-hat, ride, and then additional snares with the ride, because when these come in, you can't hear the ride anyway, because these choke each other, don't forget. So some of them have got effects on, some haven't. Build the effects, drop the effects, but the important thing is trying to remember where you're dropping down to go from pattern A to pattern B to pattern 2, or pattern 1 to pattern 2 to pattern 3. And if you can remember those little bits, you can really get a nice flow happening. So that's how you do it. I've got this little 15-minute thing I did earlier on. There's a couple of mistakes that, so forgive me for that. You know, I've just been doing it this morning. But I think it gives a good idea about what you can do with this, and it's a great little tool. Just take it to your mates, plug it in, and you know, have a little groove, because it's a nice little groove machine. It's actually a shame there is a Electribe 3, isn't there? But it's a bit smaller and it looks a bit plasticky. I've not played it yet. Maybe at some point I'll have a play with that and see what it's like. But I like the fact that this is a big, chunky, and it feels like a Pro bit of kit. And I've not mentioned these big glowing valves yet, have I? This apparently, my mate tells me, has got updated valves in it as well. Which so somebody that's had this before has really taken care of it. They made a nice lid for it as well. So and they contacted me on, I think his Instagram, and was like, oh my god, that's my Electribe. So yeah, quite cool. So thank you very much, whoever you are, for keeping it in such good nick, because it looks nice on the camera. Oh, there's a little chip in it there. Yeah, but hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please think about subscribing, ring the bell, join me over on Patreon. I've got patches, I've got samples, tutorials, and other little goodies on there. Also, take a look at my starskycar.com website. Again, patches and samples, free stuff, cheap stuff, and whole sample packs. And as I always say, it's nice even if you pick up some of the cheaper bits, because everything does help to support the channel. So hang on, listen to me make a fool of myself over the next 15 minutes, and I'll see you next time.